A government tyranny takedown. As House Republicans are investigating the weaponization of the government, the feds get kneecapped in court. The pro-life protester arrested at gunpoint by the FBI is found not guilty of face charges by the jury, according to Blaze News. Mark Houck was charged by the Justice Department with trying to injure, intimidate, and interfere with a volunteer escort at a Planned Parenthood in Philadelphia. His defense was he was trying to protect his son from harassment. Even the judge in the case against him said prosecution on the basis of the FACE Act, or Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, seemed to be stretched a little thin here. Critics alleged that the case strained the definitions of the law in order to make a political example of Houck and threaten other pro-life activists. Isn't it a coincidence the FBI would show up with guns drawn to arrest Houck while turning a blind eye to the violent destruction of other protests across the nation? Houck had faced 11 years in prison and a max fine of $350,000 over the charges. Despite polarization of the parties, a Republican and Democrat are working together to end modern-day slavery. Republican Congressman Vern Buchanan joins with Florida Democrat Debbie Wasserman Schultz to introduce the Human Trafficking and Exploitation Prevention Training Act in Congress. The bill, priced at $75 million in spending over 5 years, is intended to provide grants to nonprofit organizations to teach educators and students in schools about human trafficking awareness, according to National File. Congressman Vern Buchanan says human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery. As we close National Human Trafficking Prevention Month, we need to prioritize educating students and teachers about the horrors of this monstrous crime. He says the government proves itself to be outright complicit in modern-day slavery by failing to secure America's southern border, where crime cartels push literal human slaves into the United States to meet a horrible and uncertain fate in the American criminal underground. Governor Abbot has announced a new Texas border czar. He says it's to oversee border security in President Joe Biden's absence. Mike Banks, an award-winning Border Patrol agent with decades of federal law enforcement and border security experience, takes up the position. Abbott says Banks will fight against the surge of illegal immigration, lethal drugs, and deadly weapons flowing into Texas and the nation. The governor made the announcement where construction crews are building the second segment of the state-funded border wall in South Texas. MSN reports Abbott wants to build hundreds of miles of border barrier, filling in gaps left after Biden's administration halted President Trump's efforts to build a border wall. And it turns out this kind of attention is what most Americans care about. Immigration revamp tops a list of what Americans want from Congress, according to a new NBC News poll. 72% say lawmakers should increase border security. Polling last summer also showed more than half of Americans say there is an invasion at the southern border. Meanwhile, Governor Katie Hobbs wants to continue busing immigrants across the nation on the taxpayer's dime, according to National File. But instead of being grateful for the services, a group of illegal immigrants are protesting in New York.
Sandra, at this hour, there's a standoff taking place between the migrants and New York City officials. You can take a look behind me and you can get a glimpse of what's taking place here just outside Hell's Kitchen neighborhood in Manhattan. A few dozen migrants living on the streets say they will not move. All of them are single men who were told this weekend they had to leave their rooms at a West Side hotel in order to make room for migrants with families, including women and children. The plan was for all the single men to be relocated to a cruise line terminal in Brooklyn that has been set up as a temporary shelter. Many of the migrants say the terminal is not acceptable and want better quality housing. They are now not being allowed back into the hotel. A few dozen migrants remain there. They refuse to leave.
I cannot believe the audacity of somebody who would come to our country illegally, take a free bus ride to the #1 city in the country, and then decide that they're going to pick and choose the free accommodations that they're getting.
Immigrants are flooding other countries as well. Remix News reports immigration has hit new records in Macron's France, and the French Interior Minister has proven much tougher on French nationals staging peaceful protests against the French government's open border policy than on immigration itself. So here's today's takeaways. The Twitter takeover provided an illusion free speech would be re-embraced, but censorship and shadow banning continue to win out in the information war. A much-needed win for the pro-life movement as feds do not succeed in their political persecution of a pro-life protester. A bipartisan effort fuels hope to end human trafficking, another byproduct of open borders. And Republican Governor Greg Abbot is ramping up efforts to squelch the invasion with resistance from Democrats who are encouraging the influx. For the latest top headlines, be sure to go to AmericanFaith.com and subscribe to our daily newsletter. For American Faith, news you can trust, I'm Kristi Leigh.